Today is the last day of Parliament. And before everyone goes on holidays, enjoys time with their families start questioning them. Like, do you really want to continue working with Trudeau? Do you really want to keep this going? The families start doubting the MPs. We'll see what we come back to in the new year. But today is the last day. We know there's a Liberal Christmas party tonight. They're going to be dancing and moving. And that's the only thing Trudeau's going to show up today because he's abandoning question period, as he's mentioned. And so the question that comes up is, the NDP brought it up last night. They are open to having a vote of non-confidence come late February, early March. And everyone's like, boom, nailed it. Timing's right. We got to figure it out. Jagmeet's just all about his pension, which we know. But what is the semantics behind it? What could we actually be seeing here? And we have Reg here to discuss it with us.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I think it was kind of the bombshell thing that we had in the last video where they had the House leader for the NDP actually get up in front of the CBC and say, yeah, February, and end of February, early March. And everybody's like, oh my God, you're not even hiding it anymore. Like, you're not even being discreet. Like, we know. And so one of the big things that I thought was interesting, because everybody's talking about this, and a lot of things that the people are saying too, is like, okay, well, when they get back in January, they'll call a vote of non-confidence, and maybe then we can get rid of this government and Jagmeet won't get his pension. That's not actually true. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is how long do we have? When does this vote of non-confidence have to happen in order for us to actually see him not get his pension? So the earliest timeline that we're looking at is actually today. And so the reason why it's today is because he became an MP 6 years ago on February 25th, 2019. Mm-hmm. So his last day that he would have to put in to be eligible would be February 25th, 2025. So everybody who's talking about, if they call a pension in January, they call the pension, they call the election in January, call the election in February, he won't get it. That's not the case. That's not what's happening.
Yeah, it's like today is the day. If there's no non-confidence vote today, then he essentially gets his pension and Canadians lose.
Yeah. And so the reason for that is because you have to have a certain number of days after the vote is held for them to say, okay, we recognize this. We recognize that we're going to have to go to an election. So the non-confidence vote happens, then the election is called. So that's like a 2 to 3 day period. Okay. And then from there, you have to have a minimum of 36 days to campaign. So that's the minimum in Canada. So there's no getting around that. So we know there's 39 days right there. And so 36 days is the very minimum. So if we work that back from February the 25th, we know that it would be about January 17th, January 20th, that they would have to have this election called. But the problem is that they don't return from their winter break until the 27th of January. Late. So they're 10 days late. So there's no way that that's going to be called. The only way that this would happen is if Parliament got called back earlier, which there is precedent for happening. Usually it happens if there's some kind of like economic crisis, some disaster, or something that is so alarming that it rouses our lazy politicians back into Parliament early. So that said, they would have to come back to work before the 17th in order for that to actually be possible. Otherwise, today is the day. Today is the last day.
And so I'm kind of curious how that works in terms of semantics, because we talked, you discussed, how the point of time where they actually have to campaign for. But if you are calling a vote of non-confidence, that means that day Parliament dissolves. So technically your position's gone.
No. So you are still paid and you are still considered employed until the MP seat changes. So you are still technically representing that riding until the day of election. So even if Parliament is dissolved or Parliament is prorogued or Parliament whatever, until the election day, you are paid right up until the minute. So that is how it works. So it all counts as pensionable earnings.
Gee, look at him go. Jagmeet figured out the system, and he's winning. He's beating us all.
Yeah.
And he's playing us all like a fiddle.
Yeah. He's there smiling, hanging out of his Maserati, waving his Rolex around, waving his Versace around. He's like, don't worry, Canada, you're going to be buying me a whole lot more.
Merry Christmas. Or whatever others. Happy holidays, he would say. We got to shift our focus out west. With everything that happened yesterday, people tended to forget about what happened with the by-election out west in Langley. and Conservatives won in convincing fashion. But also the turnout was abysmal. Curious what the reasons were people just not motivated to go out, or was things so chaotic? I'm curious what happened on the ground out there, but have you heard anything that's happened with that by-election?
So what I've been seeing with that by-election, like first off, the Conservatives celebrating this as another win. That one's kind of an interesting riding because it was Conservative, then Liberal, then Conservative, then Liberal. So it flip-flops back and forth. So it wasn't quite the same kind of riding that you saw in Toronto and St. Paul's. Mm-hmm. This was more of a contested spot where the previous the previous Conservative that held it lost and now is back in again. So it is another nail in the coffin, though, for Trudeau's Liberals, though. It's the Canadian public saying, we're done with you. And so what I'm looking at, this riding in particular, you've got a lot of people who are either undecided, they've flip-flopped back and forth quite a few years with who they're going to vote for. I think it's a riding that's tired. They're just tired of the BS. And the people who showed up were the Conservatives that said, we're going to vote this person out, mm-hmm. and we're going to change our government one seat at a time. And so that's why you saw such a low turnout, is that people are not hopeful. People are not going to the election ballot saying, this is great, I'm so excited, change is coming to our country. They're just saying, we just need to get these jokers out as quickly as possible, and this is one more seat that they don't have. What's interesting about this, even moving beyond the by-election, is the fact that this is, again, Pierre Poilievre chipping away at the Liberals' base. And so if they can get enough of these seats and win enough of these by-elections, and if you had the Liberal backbenchers actually stand up for what they believe in, they're calling for Trudeau to resign in the same way that Jagmeet is.
Yeah.
But just like Jagmeet, though, they're still voting for him. They're still voting that they have confidence. I was like, how can you on one hand say that you support your leader and then on the other hand say that you want him to resign? Mm. Like, that to me is very self-serving. So people can rip on Jagmeet all they want, like we just did, because he's a tool. But the fact of the matter is that you Liberals are also supporting. And so I think Pierre Poilievre kind of missed the mark when he was in the House of Commons. He said, the only person that's keeping this person in power is Jagmeet. It's like, yeah, but no. Like, these Liberal backbenchers should see the writing on the wall and should actually, have their names counted when they go before the rest of Canada and say, hey, listen, we listen to you. We understand that, you're probably going to vote for Conservative, but we wanted to represent your vote, and going against our own leader was very hard, but we knew that this was the right thing to do. Have the Elizabeth Smith McCrossen courage that we always talk about, mm-hmm. To actually stand up. And then maybe, I'm not saying it's likely, but maybe that might sway some voters in their ridings to say, okay, you know what? We didn't like Trudeau. We didn't like that government, but at least our guy stood up for us. And so we're going to respect that, because we see that happen with Elizabeth Smith McCrossen, where she's an independent. She has no support, and yet her entire community supports her every single time. So maybe that's something that these other Liberals should be thinking of. And as a to-do to people who live in ridings where they have Liberal backbenchers, maybe write to your politician and say, hey, listen, like, we know it's not you, but you need to stop supporting this guy. You need to actually stand up for us. Otherwise, we're not going to vote for you.
Yeah. And that's essentially how I felt about Darren Fisher, who's also an MP out here in Nova Scotia, who had a very smart aleck point in House of Commons yesterday, a stupid little poem that apparently got bipartisan support. I hate that crap. But he's similar. Like, he just kind of like, he just got admitted into cabinet this past year. So he finally got his moment in the sun. But like, he's always voted in favor of Trudeau. So in my mind, he's nowhere different than any other MP from my perspective. Like, you've never stood up for us. You claim you did, but you keep voting with this guy. And so I'd view the backbenchers the same way. And I find the backbenchers, the only thing with them is typically, it's not always, but typically backbenchers are some of the least experienced people in politics, mm-hmm. in the party. And so I imagine that probably played in the back of their minds a lot too. Is like, hey, if you start playing, these 20 got together and you start planning, quote unquote, a coup to a degree, and saying we're not going to support Trudeau going forward, that takes a lot of thought without the cabinet finding out about it. Mm-hmm. And so that, what I can imagine, was probably playing in the back of their minds, like, hey, if we do this, we have to, like, if we aim for the king, you can't miss kind of scenario. Because if they do, then they're out, they're gone. Someone else is going to fill in.
And that's just a shot in the ear. It's not an actual.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I imagine happened. But like, if there was just one of those backbenchers who was able to kind of bring those guys together and is like, hey, we're doing this. We're going to overthrow Trudeau. And then, as you said, you have your name in the record saying, nay, yay, whatever the non-confidence motion is, that you voted against Trudeau's government and you took him down. You get on podcasts, you get on social media. This is what we did. This is what I did. I put my job on the line because I knew this guy wasn't right for Canada, and he's in my party. Like, that would have made such a huge difference for them, I imagine.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that that's what it is. It's people can see integrity and people know integrity. And if they see that you are not being honest and truthful and you are gaslighting Canadians and then you are expecting them to vote for you again, you're basically just spitting in their face and calling them stupid. And so what you need to do is you need to actually go out there, like you said, speak to the people, say, this was really challenging in order to vote against my own party. And I did it for you. And then run with that and talk about the fact that like, this is something that you believe in and that you believe in the support of the people. You could, like, the media will run with it. So yeah, I don't even know if it really takes that much organization, especially where his cabinet is falling apart at the seams. Right. So I really think the moment is now for them to kind of rise up and take some power back from, fearless leader.
Absolutely.
So, well, or should I say fearful leader. Yeah. He's probably on his plane to Tofino right now.
Yeah, he's freaking out. And so talking about fearless leaders, I brought this up in this morning's video. Trump dropping this last night when everything's in just disarray and chaos was honestly hilarious to me in so many ways, only because he's just, when your house is on fire, there's nothing worse than someone coming by and adding more fire to the fire that's being lit in your house. And that's what I saw here, where, Trump's just walking by with a log, sees the house on fire. He's like, here's some more logs, throw them back on. And it's just like, he's just such a troll on so many levels. And admittedly, I'm laughing about the whole thing. I thought this was a hilarious tweet or a post.
I actually found it annoying.
I know you did. Yeah, I know you did.
So the reason why I say that is because, like, I don't think it's that he's throwing logs on the fire. I think he's walking by and doing like that Simpsons like kind of thing. Like,
true.
It's so frustrating, and I'm like, you're not helping.
Yep.
You're not really hurting either. It's just annoying because, like, you take a lot of pride in the fact that we're Canadian and we have certain values and morals, and we're not the States. Even though we have a good percentage of people wishing that we were, we've got the American president there trying to tell us that we are. Like, these kind of things are really, really frustrating, but are just natural because of the way that this government has been. This government takes no pride in our own self-identity. Its goal is to have us completely washed into the great, World Economic Forums of the planet, and trying to completely erase any individuality that we have.
Or nationalism.
Yeah, exactly. And then labeling any nationalism as just like far right hatred. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, we can be proud of the things that we did. We can recognize the faults that we have, and we can do better in the future. That's called being reflective and honest and having some self-identity. But we've got none of that right now. We've got the weakest leader going. And then you got this knob writing these stupid tweets. It's just like, oh my God, can you shut up for 2 seconds till we get this place under control? Yeah. The house is on fire, and like, he's literally coming by and blocking the fire trucks because I'm so mad.
So the reason why I love it is because I mentioned this in the video earlier, it's just that extra push off the ledge for it all to fall apart. Because if he doesn't troll the way he has been the past month, I don't think a lot of this disarray is happening in the cabinet at the moment. It's because of the pressure of the tariffs, and like, he's coming, he's putting pressure on in a big way, and they know it's coming. They know it's going to put Canada in a tough spot. So now infighting is happening amongst the cabinet. Trudeau's not leaving, and now we have our finance minister who stepped down, multiple cabinet members have stepped down, and Trump's just like doing whatever he can because we all know Trump doesn't want to work with Trudeau. He wants Trudeau gone. He wants Poilievre's office admin to come in. he doesn't want to work with Trudeau. So I think he's doing everything he can and to essentially just blow up politics in Canada is what's happening.
Yeah. So here's where I kind of disagree with you. So the tariffs, totally agree with you 100%. That was the major push. Like that's what pushed Freeland off the edge here, honestly. I think that the constant trolling, the demoralization of Canada, I don't think that's helpful. And the way I don't think that's helpful is that with this chaos that's happening, this is bad for business. This is bad for investment. This is bad for like the moral integrity of the country. I think that this actually hurts us quite a bit. And to be embarrassed like this on the world stage, because I was watching a podcast coming out of Australia and they were just laughing about all of this. And so the problem is that when you have the other rest of the world laughing at you, not with you, that's not good. Mm-hmm. And that really trickles down, like I said, into investment, into business, into people wanting to be innovative and starting things. And none of that happens. Like it's definitely been hampered immensely under this government, but it gets so much worse when your like government is embarrassed in this way. So I don't think that people being shamed and embarrassed is great for the country. But I do think that key policy moves like forcing the tariffs and things like that, 100%. That is going to be a movement. If he was to come out and say, I'm throwing another 10% on it if you don't figure your crap out today, that would just set that place ablaze. Like, you know what I mean? That's the kind of movement that I see. But as far as throwing at these just embarrassing tweets, like, yeah, I can see from the other side, like it's humorous, it's funny, it's stupid, but at the same time, it's demoralizing, and that's the part that I don't like.
The part I did find interesting was him talking about the unhappy citizens of Canada. No one likes you, man.
Yeah, that's true. I felt bad though that Freeland got flamed as bad as she did. Yeah, like toxic behavior. I can just see him saying it too. She's a nasty lady. She's nasty. Like, you know what I mean? Toxic. Like I can just see him saying that. And like unfortunately, she made her bet, so she gets what she gets. But it was interesting though when you hear her own words and just like, okay, you were in a toxic relationship, like 100%. Like you were kind of a victim here. Not one that I'm going to wholeheartedly, welcome with open arms, but like, I'm not going to dig the hole to bury you in. You've kind of already done that for yourself. Yeah. But I'm not going to throw any more dirt on top of it. But Trump certainly did. Yeah.
Well, Trump didn't. It has been reported that Trump doesn't like her, and that the rumors were on the street were that he asked Trudeau not to bring Freeland with him to Mar-a-Lago. So there's some animosity there already. So I can see he thinks of Freeland the same way he thinks of Kamala.
Yeah.
Hates you.
Yeah. What's interesting though is that one of the things that stuck out to me was when we were at CFSN last year, and we heard Danielle Smith speak, and she spoke highly of Freeland. Which like threw me. And I was like, I wonder how much of this like crap that Freeland's pulled actually is her and how much of it is her just bowing to Trudeau. Because if the Alberta Premier is going, we can work with Freeland, I like Freeland, we've got no problems with her, Guilbeault needs to go. Like that to me says, okay, you've got Guilbeault who's nuts, and then you've got Trudeau who's nuts. And if you've got the pair of them pressuring her as the finance minister to do things that she might not even want to do, which she outlined in her letter. And then you have Danielle Smith speaking highly of her. I'm like, I wonder how much of this is her fault and how much of this was just Trudeau trying to blame another woman, and which I called it yesterday. I want to just say right now, I called it yesterday that he would have a woman present that horrible, horrible financial.
You call that a presentation?
Yeah.
See ya. Yeah. She dropped the documents with the speaker that bounced.
Yeah. But still, why wasn't it his new male finance minister?
Mr. LeBlanc. Yeah, that was a joke and a half, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it was as you said, it's a dumpster fire. And the one thing I will say, there's only one person, as we know, as of right now, that's been invited to Trump's inauguration. Danielle Smith. And that's where we'll leave that. We got one last thing to say before we finish off here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's going to be the thing that brings them back early from Parliament. That's like, I know this is a hopeful Reg with his rose-colored glasses on, get rid of Jagmeet Singh's pension to wrap it all up. But like, do you think like Trump's inauguration, whatever happens with that, because he gets inaugurated on the 20th, that's the last day that they could possibly, if they tightened all the timelines, they could call a vote of non-confidences on that day. So it's like, what are the chances that they pull Parliament back into session early to deal with whatever fallout comes from Trump's inauguration? Possible. That could be emergency enough, you know what I mean?
Considering next to nothing is being done from the federal level on our borders right now, it's all just this fighting that's happening, an implosion, and the only thing people who are addressing the border right now are the premiers. I don't know. I'm not confident. It would be interesting if it happened, though.
Yeah.
Gee, what a time to be alive, man. Well, thank you all for joining us again. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good one. We're out.